2 to 4 Knox Street has been the site of a municipal building since 1899, when this key area around Woodford Square was home to several significant political and religious buildings. The present City Hall is a distinguished example of 1950s architecture, which reflected a move away from traditional colonial styles towards a more modern and functional aesthetic. In 1899, Cocoa Baron and Deputy Mayor Leon Agostini sold the property to the City Council for the sum of $38,000, and from then on it has been used for municipal purposes. Between 1899 and 1907, the Town Hall housed barristers' chambers, club rooms, and governmental department offices. A devastating fire in 1948, however, destroyed the building, and as a result, the administration of Port of Spain was conducted from the Prince's Building, which was at the south of the Savannah. Architects Pryor, Lourenco, and Northnagle were hired to design the new town hall. The architecture of the building came out of the post-World War II modernist movement. Trinidad and Tobago was developing quickly, and independence was in the air. There was a lot of interest in creating architecture that was moving in a new direction, away from traditional modes of building. The architecture of City Hall was adapted for the climate in a style that was called tropical modernism.
If you look at a number of features of the building in terms of common areas and the way that certain areas were naturally ventilated, the way that certain areas don't rely on air conditioning. And also if you look at the plan of City Hall, on the north side of Woodford Square there is a kind of courtyard area that opens out onto the sidewalk. They're buildings that were designed in consideration of the climate. Features were designed in terms of the building envelope, the circulation spaces, and there was a sort of maximization of the natural ventilation potential of the building. And also its relation to the sun, different times of the day, I think were carefully considered in buildings.
Large windows and well-placed breeze blocks allowed the open offices to be filled with light and air. Unlike previous colonial municipal buildings, the new City Hall was an accessible public building that also fit into the surrounding environment without dominating it. Even the auditorium, used for various cultural and municipal purposes, was designed to be easily accessed by the public from the street. The new building was a move away from architecture that was assertive and authoritarian towards something more encompassing.
But I think it was attempting to be a public building and to fit into the landscape. If you look at the scale of it along Frederick Street and along Woodford, from the elevation on Woodford Square, it's not a dominant building. Its scale is consistent with the buildings around it. And again, if you look at the way that the little courtyard space and the way that the hall opens out onto the sidewalk, these were all gestures that I think were intended to break down that notional idea that a government building was something separate and represented an authority, but it was part of a much more democratic process and a softening of the line between the private sort of world of the administrative domain, the government society, and the public dimension of society.
In 1958, the foundation stone for the new City Hall was laid by Princess Margaret. Just 3 years later, in 1961, the new building was completed and renamed City Hall. It became the seat of the municipal government for Port of Spain. A mural by acclaimed artist Carlisle Chang, entitled Concorabia, can be found on the ground floor of the building. The name of the piece comes from Port of Spain's original Amerindian name. The 41-foot mural is like a plan of Port of Spain. The Red House, the Old Town Hall, and several key buildings are etched into the concrete. Amerindian motifs are included, as well as images that represent the diverse religions of Port of Spain.
The Carlisle Chan piece in there, I think, is a very interesting feature of the building. And if you look at a lot of buildings from that time, they did integrate works of art. A number of buildings in Port of Spain did that. And I think that this building, works very well in the way that that piece is integrated, and I think we should do a lot more of that.
Port of Spain City Hall is emblematic of a time when colonial institutions were being dismantled in favour of a more open and local approach to governance. Worthy of preservation, the building is a landmark in our modern governmental history.